Today, we've got a crazy story about a mother who asked to see their child's bank account, then told them they were a liar. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, boyfriend's entitled parents walked out of his show because of my costume. My now fiance, Jim, and I have always been rocky with his parents. I have no contact with my family due to abuse, and met Jim's parents at a very uncertain and scary time for me. They never particularly liked me, and thought I was weird because of how nervous I was. However, I had good reason. Jim still lived with them at the time, and I had heard a lot about how controlling they were. His dad had some issues with looking at inappropriate content and lying about in the past that I won't go fully into, but basically never took accountability for it. Jim's mom, Becky, not only enabled him, but projected onto Jim and became hyper-controlling in his teenage years. She assumed he would do the same thing just because he was male, and didn't let him watch any movies where a woman wore tight clothes, even cartoons. Aladdin was not allowed because of Jasmine's design. It even got to the point where Happy Feet was banned because the penguins moved too sexily. Jim was also not allowed to have Instagram or Facebook until he was 18 for fear he might see inappropriate pictures. These same restrictions were not placed on his sister. Jim's first relationship, which happened when he was 18, ended because the girl could not stand how awful Becky was. She grounded him for seeing her for a week because he posted a photo of them kissing. Jim was stuck obeying because he wasn't financially able to move out and was still caught in the process of realizing how extreme this was. When the girl broke up with him, his mom refused to admit she had a role in it and just ignored him while he struggled with severe depression for several months, and later told him he had hurt the family by spending a lot of time in his room trying to process everything. I met Jim through my family's business. We became best friends and then fell in love. He helped me break out of abuse and gain independence, another story, and we've been together ever since. When I met his family, Becky wasn't as hard on me as she had been on his first girlfriend, but it was bad enough. She criticized every move I made, always behind my back. I talked too much, didn't talk enough, didn't make enough eye contact, didn't look like I was listening. There was always a problem. When Jim tried to stick up for me, she would just overrule him and insist she was right. If he tried to explain she was making me nervous, she got offended because she wasn't doing anything to make me nervous. I was just trying to act like she was my mother. Her other biggest issue was my clothes. She's extremely picky about what women should wear, especially curvier women. I wasn't allowed to wear anything below my collarbone in her house because I would be tempting her struggling husband to look. I am curvy with a big bust and big hips, and she didn't particularly like that Jim chose a curvy girl at all. My button leggings was a problem, but they also poked fun of me for wearing skirts, which I actually like to do. I have a chronic pain condition that makes jeans really uncomfortable to wear, so I was a lot of times at a loss as to what they wanted from me. Of course, I dressed the way I wanted to outside of her home, but she would see my Facebook photos and complain. I thought about unfriending her, but that would have caused too much offense. I didn't want to put Jim through it. He was already dealing with getting treated badly by his sister, unfairly by his dad, and trying to juggle college and getting a second job to be able to move out. And I just wanted there to be as little drama as possible just until we could get a place together. We also started to notice her rules were very inconsistent. Jim's sister, Cindy, would wear things I definitely wouldn't be permitted to wear in Becky's house. Becky indicated this was because Cindy was more petite. This made it clear her problem wasn't even with my clothing style, it was with my body, which made me very uncomfortable. Clothes are one thing, but I can't change the size and shape of my hips and boobs. So fast forward a little to when Cindy began dating a guy. We expected her to have to go through what Jim and I went through upon introduction, but they didn't. Becky fell all over Cindy's boyfriend, welcomed him with open arms, made up cute nicknames for him, and literally would gaze at him while we sat at the table. Jim and I figured she was living vicariously through Cindy, or just plain liked him because she has always shown signs of preferring Cindy to Jim. She didn't like any girl Jim was ever interested in, but absolutely adored Cindy's guy. Another note, she had an issue with everything with me, but Cindy's guy was a different religion than her. Based on all Becky's opinions and views, that should have been a huge problem, but she didn't seem to care in the slightest. Jim was really hurt by the difference. We weren't allowed to do anything other than hold hands around them. If we hugged or put our arms around each other, Becky would complain and tell Jim we needed to act like friends. But Cindy could straight up slap her guy's butt in the kitchen, and Becky acted like it was cute. That and a mix of other little things blew up, and Jim and I put a deposit down on an apartment. Of course, holy heck blew up at the prospect of Jim living with me unmarried, but Becky realized he was serious and seemed to calm down out of worry she might lose a relationship. After moving things out, things got better. We saw them about once a month for holidays instead of every Sunday. We all got along better. They seemed genuinely happy to see us for about 2 months. Cindy began pulling her entitled crap again. Jim's dad began being overly authoritarian, and Becky started nitpicking again. It didn't get far before the big issue started. Jim does a lot of theater, and we got involved with the production of Macbeth. Jim was co-directing, and I was Lady Macbeth. Jim adores Shakespeare, and this was a big deal, but it also became a very stressful process. We got stuck putting together costumes last minute that we hadn't known would be our responsibility. We had been told to get a flashy red formal gown for me to wear in the banquet scene. I found the highest quality one I could afford that still had a full skirt and wasn't stretchy and cheap. It was off the shoulder and showed some cleavage. I asked Jim if it was okay since his mom would come to the show. He said, "I don't care. They've been to my shows where girls wore low-cut stuff before. They'll complain, but I don't have to plan my show around her opinions." I wore the dress, they came to the show, and walked out at intermission. The entire cast was shocked. I only wore the dress for 15 minutes, on a tall stage from 30 feet away from them. It wasn't that bad. Everyone was extremely supportive of Jim, which was great, but we knew it wasn't over yet. The fact that his mom was willing to walk out in the middle of a show Jim directed when she knew how much theater means to him floored me. When she called him a few days later, she was self-righteous and accusatory, calling him a bad boyfriend for, quote, letting me go on stage like that, and claiming he did it on purpose. Jim told her it was literally the best one we could find, and she said she didn't believe him. He began pointing out all her inconsistencies, how she still watches Titanic and Pearl Harbor because she likes them, and how she didn't leave other family events when girls were dressed in lower-cut stuff than me. It was just because it was me. She began gaslighting and denying she'd said things, said she was perfectly justified to leave the show, and we were wrong to have a problem with it. She said we were choosing to take offense when she was just speaking the truth. Jim told her, yes, them leaving was a consequence of our actions, but us having a problem was a consequence of theirs, and she needed to put herself in our shoes and take some accountability. It ended with nothing getting resolved. A few days later, I ran across a very good article about how society treats women when men look at them in gross ways, how we need to stop transferring the shame to the women, and remember that even in the Bible, Jesus said to pluck out your eye if you're looking at a woman with lustful thoughts, not to tell the woman to change her clothes. I reshared the article because I liked it. Cue Becky blowing up publicly on the post about, what about the hurt wife of the man who has to see him look at the inappropriate woman? Why does no one care about her? I replied as politely as I could, pointing out that wasn't the topic of this particular post, and there are plenty of resources for wives of men who struggle. Therapy, church groups, support groups, etc. While people mainly point fingers at the women who get objectified, many of whom don't even know they're being looked at, or, like me, get objectified no matter how we dress. I get hit on at work when I'm wearing a black polo. Becky continued on with a berating lecture, and I snapped back, telling her I was tired of her criticism and that I'm perfectly within my rights to share my opinion on this subject, considering she does that constantly and I never berate her publicly when I disagree. We switched to texting and continued arguing for a few texts. Jim's dad finally showed himself, and a few nasty texts to Jim as well, which was bold considering his past behavior caused this entire issue for the family, and he's never apologized. Then, without giving me time to respond, Becky texted him and told him she was cutting contact until we had a change of heart. Jim was furious and sent them each a final message detailing all the crap they did and gaslit him about for years, and said maybe some distance would be beneficial. We had our own little no-stress Thanksgiving, and then Jim proposed to me. It had been well known that he was going to propose, but Jim didn't reach out to tell his family when he was going to, except for his grandmother who lives out of state. His family said nothing, didn't reach out or anything, which was pretty normal for them, as they always refused to acknowledge our dating anniversary or any smaller couples milestones in the past. Then, just before Christmas, Becky reached out. She told Jim a package had been accidentally delivered to their house and cheerfully invited him to come over because they'd love to see him. Jim was even angrier at this because not only were they not acknowledging this milestone in his life and not acknowledging me at all, but they were just acting like nothing had happened and like things should just pop back to normal. He told his mom, "I don't think that'd be a good idea since I haven't had a change of heart." She responded by saying she didn't know what he was talking about and trying to rephrase her contact-cutting text. He proceeded to ignore her since gaslighting is such a pattern, and there's no talking to her when she does that. He hasn't responded and doesn't feel ready to reach out, and they haven't said anything else. Our wedding is set for October, and the save the dates are going out in March, so they have 3 months to shape up or they will not be invited. Neither of us really want them there. A case of love them but don't like them for Jim and genuine dislike for me. But of course, if they make nice, we will invite them. But there's going to have to be accountability and acceptance of our alternate views, and we seriously don't see that happening. Readiness responded, "Please do not invite people who don't support your union as a couple. Regardless of any bury the hatchet behavior they show in the coming months, there's too much danger of them making a scene at the wedding. Not worth the risk." Unlucky Star 1324 responded, 100%. Jim's mom will wear white along with his sister to try and upstage the OP. His sister will suddenly be proposed to by the boyfriend during their wedding into their engagement party part 1, or sister will announce she's pregnant or all of the above. His mom will nitpick whatever OP wears and will try to control it along with any other woman there who might get Jim's dad's attention. She'll try to micromanage and control everything. If it's not that, she'll cause a huge scene. OP, don't invite them, don't give any details where they can find them, and don't let them in your home. They will ruin your dress, they'll cancel or ruin the wedding, the reception, they'll try to cancel the catering and venues or change it to their wants. They will not stop. Dad needs help or a divorce so he can be happy. Mom needs therapy, and his sister is a spoiled brat at this point. I don't think there's anything that can change that. Just go no contact and live your best life with Jim. Also, don't ever let them know if you're having kids or let them see them. If you don't want to remove her from Facebook, there are settings when making posts to allow who on your contacts list can see the post. Also, hi, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these Entitled Parents videos, it would be awesome if you left a like or a comment if you're listening to our podcast. That said, our next story is Ask for Money and Got Pointless Gifts Instead. For Christmas, my parents asked what I wanted, and I told them just money. Don't get me gifts, just money, please. For context, I got laid off from my corporate job almost a year ago. I'm still working, just haven't found a new corporate job, but minimum wage does not cover the cost of living in my area in San Diego. So I told both of my parents all I would like is money to go towards rent or food. Please, nothing else, because I don't need anything. For more context, my parents are pretty wealthy. They've never helped me out, and I don't expect them to. They just bought a $4 million home, and my dad just sold his company for a lot of money. It's just hard to be around them because they're extremely out of touch. They constantly spend money and can't fathom that people are struggling right now. I've never had the best relationship with them, considering they only talk about themselves and make sure to let me know I won't make any money and that I'll never make as much money as my dad. I'm 27 years old. So for Christmas, I started getting handed gifts. I know you can say I sound ungrateful, but I knew as soon as I saw presents under the tree for myself, I wouldn't be getting money. My parents proceeded to get me the most pointless, expensive things. They left the price tags on, so I saw how much money they spent. They got me 4 Anthropology candles, $175 total, a $50 cat hand towel, a pashmina, a Team U fake houseplant, not expensive but something I do not need, 2 pairs of running socks, and a cooking spoon, something I already have. Again, these are all things I do not need. It was hard not to cry sitting there looking at the price tags and just wishing I had that money instead of these pointless gifts. On top of that, my parents didn't ask me a single thing about myself this whole Christmas. I had to sit there and listen about the 2 Airbnbs they bought and how my mom just did a gift exchange and got a ton of balance products from her friends. You can say I'm selfish, but it hurt. I've lost a lot of weight because I cannot afford to eat. I left feeling worse about myself and hating them even more. Photojournalist Only responded, "Honey, I say this as a mom. Before you leave, go grab a couple bags and cram as much food in them from the kitchen as you can. Take it home and at least you'll have food. If they see, so much the better. Let them know you asked for money because you can't afford food, and they can keep the candles because you can't eat them. Let the action speak. Let them see that broke means no food, not can't afford a new Prada bag." Our next story is, Mom asked to see my bank account and told me I'm a liar. I'm 26, currently studying. Soon I'll start my internship, and I hope soon I'll be able to start working and earning my own money. At least that's the plan. While that doesn't happen, I'm still living with my parents, and I try to make my mother spend as little as possible on me. Every day of school, I have to ask my mother for a bit of money for a cup of coffee. Once in a while I go out with my friends and can only drink a cup of coffee too with them, because that's as far as my mother is willing to spend on my leisure and social life. Sometimes she even complains that I should just sleep better or drink coffee at home, so she won't spend on that either. I spent the whole year not buying anything for myself, only food or snacks once in a while, because I have some compulsion for junk food. Unhealthy, I know. Although sometimes I get upset, she's constantly saying she has no money to spend on me, even though there's always money for everything else. I accept that and understand. It's her hard-earned money. I see how she works hard every day. Not my business. Her reasoning for not giving me a monthly allowance is that I'm unable to save money, because if I waste it on anything she deems as unnecessary, then that means I cannot save money. That's why I applied for a student scholarship and got accepted. Received my first payment 1 week ago, but decided not to tell my mother because I know she'll lecture me about not spending it on anything and saving it all for my internship exchange program. Then today she asked to see my bank account, and I prepared myself for the talk we would inevitably have when she sees that 0.05% of the scholarship money is gone in things I bought for myself, the first time in a long time. I deem the things I bought not exactly fundamental for my existence, but sure things that make my life better and more entertaining. But of course she said they weren't necessary and kept inquiring why I bought that. Anyway, she told me I was becoming a little liar for keeping from her that I received my scholarship money, and we had a little fight, because apparently me having my own money, even if it's government money, and keeping that fact to myself is an attack on her. She then proceeded to look at my bank history. I asked her if she thought that was normal, and she said yes. I love my mother dearly. I know she does a lot for me, but I know she also thinks I've not accomplished enough for my age and wasted my former educational opportunities, and she doesn't believe in my ability to ever be independent because of a previous psychotic depression episode that made me really dependent on her care, which I'm very thankful for. I'm receiving help, and I'm much better now. I can't give the whole context of our relationship. The story's long. It's not the first or last time she invades my privacy. At this age, I'm still learning to set boundaries, but when she talks calmly to me about how I think I'm always right and talking to me is difficult, she understands this or that way more than me because she's older and has experience, while I talk more louder or harshly because I get offended by the invasion and exasperated by the uncomfortable talk. I can't help but think I'm the wrong one and don't treat her right. I'm posting here because I feel like it's the best community for that. I don't think my mother is entitled per se, but these situations hurt me and make me even less willing to develop a better rapport and share my personal life with her as much as I want to. Too old for this spit responded, "You're an adult and your financial information is your business, and your money is yours to do with as you please. You do not have to show your mother your bank account. On the other hand, you're an adult living in your mother's house. Her money is hers, and you have no right to judge how she spends it. She doesn't have to give you an allowance. She doesn't have to give you coffee money. She should not be supporting you the same way she did when you were still a minor. If you want her to treat you like an adult, you have to behave like one. Do you? Do you contribute to the household? If you can't afford to pay rent, do you at least keep your living spaces clean? Do your own laundry and help around the house? Do you do your best to minimize the impact on your mother of having to support a nearly 30-year-old child? Without that information, it's hard to tell which of you is the entitled one. Our next story is Holiday Clarity. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm actually glad for the confrontation I had with my mom this week. For context, I've had so many conflicts with my mom regarding any adult decisions I make. I'm 30 years old. My mom is heavily reliant on social status and external validation, so she'll camouflage to whoever is around her to fit in. I'm not that way at all. Most recently, I became a professional cabaret dancer, although I have a day job as a scientist, and she could not hate it more. Now, here's where it gets good. I finally stood up for myself in powerful ways this Christmas and saw her disarmed for the first time ever. My husband and I spent our time, money, and effort to visit her and my stepdad's family for Christmas across the country. During this time, I showed a video to my stepdad's 19-year-old niece of my cabaret dancing while we all got pictures. My mother awkwardly berated me in front of everyone, telling me how inappropriate I am, so we all sat awkwardly not knowing what to do next. That same night, I joked with my stepdad's 80-year-old mother that I would fill her wine glass to the very top. I bought the wine. She just needs to ask, and again, my mom called attention to it at the dinner table, and it was visibly tense now. That's when my mom grabbed me and pulled me into the bathroom at these strangers' house to tell me I was embarrassing. I had it at this point, and I said, "You've quite literally cornered me in this bathroom, at a home where I know no one. I have no context as to what these people feel or do. I can only be myself, and if they don't like it, then they aren't my people. I won't be dimming myself to make it more palatable for you. I won't be coming for holidays anymore. As for my dancing, I'm proud of it, and I don't need to answer to anyone about what I, a 30-year-old married woman, does in her free time." Then my mom said, "I'm not comfortable with you dancing. Have you ever considered how I feel?" To which I replied, "No, because it doesn't matter how you feel about it. Your feelings around it won't change the outcome. You're not welcome at my shows." Then she pulled the whole, "Oh, because you're so freaking perfect and I'm a terrible mom, blah blah blah." I held firmly, stating that I would not be engaging in the conversations that are heading in that direction. The next morning, she tried to corner me again, and I stepped aside and said, "You will not be cornering me again. It's a vulnerable position, and I won't be doing that." The rest of the trip, I gray rocked and couldn't believe it, but she actually seemed smaller than ever. All those times I begged for her to see me, and now she was begging me to see her, and I didn't care. She told me she loved me, and I waited to respond. Not as a punishment, but to call attention to the fact that when someone loves you, they accept you, and she doesn't accept me. Holidays are a very difficult time for so many, and I want to send lots of warmth and kindness to anyone going through a challenging time. Our next story is, my mom bought me 2 goldfish for Christmas and no tank. Quick bit of background. I recently went very low contact with my parents, but came home for Christmas to keep the peace, I suppose, and to check out the dog and my siblings who live abroad, so I only see them at my parents' house. My mom is heavily in denial about this and heard I like fish, so she bought a tank, which is a tiny glass handbag the size of my hand, then found out through my brother that I already have a fish tank, and still bought me 2 common goldfish so big already that they couldn't even turn around in the tank. There was also no filter, and these fish were hyperventilating and gasping for air and couldn't even move really. I quietly freaked out at first as I tried to figure out what I would do. They can't go in my tank as I have tropical fish and it's already at capacity. I'm still learning about fish care and cold water fish are not my specialty, but I do know common goldfish can get to 10 inches and need 2 liters of water per 0.5 centimeters of fish size. They're also meant to live 10 to 15 years, contrary to common belief. I know people say fish grow to the size of their tank, which is technically true, but they were already too big for this tank, and it causes severe health issues to have stunted growth. I asked my mom where she got the fish so I could return them. At first, she refused to tell me and then admitted it was the local pet shop. This sparked a massive argument where she started crying, saying she didn't want me to be upset, and this took days of planning. She also would not leave me alone when I asked her to get out of my room so I could think. Then she poured the fish into a slightly bigger vase while I wasn't looking. It's a bit better, but it's nowhere near what these fish need, and they still cannot breathe properly. A friend of mine is looking into getting the equipment to maybe take them until I get a bigger place, because right now I really don't have the funds to set up a massive second fish tank big enough for 2 goldfish, and I also don't have the space. This has really messed up our Christmas, since any time I say anything about the fish, it's immediately assumed I'm being ungrateful and pessimistic when I'm just stating facts about what the fish need. I'm told not to worry about it since I can't do anything about it, but I'm hyper aware they're there and suffocating. I'm worried they won't even make it until my friend can maybe take them next week, since they were in that bag for 4 days already. I feel like my Christmas present was, while probably unintentional, to force me to abuse my favorite animals, while all my knowledge about their care is very fresh in my mind. If anyone is thinking about getting someone a goldfish as a present, do not do it. They're not a decoration. They can die an agonizingly slow and painful death from poisoning and suffocation in a small tank with no filter. I just really needed to rant about this because I feel like I'm going insane. My options really seem to be to spend money I don't have on a massive fish tank I have no space for, rely on a friend to do that instead who might have space for them, and hope they can get the setup ready on time even though all shops are closed right now, or leave the fish at my parents' house where they will die. And somehow I'm the drama for being upset. I don't know if this is my mom's way of desperately trying to win my affection back or something, or if she knew I had no space so I'd have to leave them here and come home more often to look after them, or if she really thought I could keep 2 goldfish, each already about 3 inches long, in a narrow glass bag the size of my hand. There's no good option here, and I'm just upset because I already love these fish, and it breaks my heart to see them dragged into this and suffering. _Simon_ says commented, "You can take them back to the shop, but the shop might not accept them. Who knows what diseases they might have been exposed to, out of the shop's care. But if you can, just give them back to the shop. Don't waste a lot of energy protecting mom's feelings. It's a crappy, loaded present that's only going to cause you expense and inconvenience. She may as well learn that." With that being said, that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed today's video, drop a like and comment below, and if you want to check out our other videos, click the video on the right. With that being said, I'll see you all next time.